This morning I'm talking about subconscious mind and fear, which is part 2. Part 1 was last Sunday. Let me begin today's talk with some what I think are insightful verses from the Agni yoga books. And the first one is this. It says, today, this is from Super Mundane, paragraph 5, so it's right from the very beginning. Today you spoke about the fear experienced by plants. If sensitivity to vibration is strongly developed in plants, it must be immeasurably stronger in people. Isn't that interesting to think about? Yeah. And then from paragraph 44, it says, fiery people do not feel fear and are not afraid. So there's a definition of fiery people. So if you think you're a fiery person, this would be a definition of your nature. Fiery people do not feel fear and are not afraid. So this brings me to today's world and what's happening between Russia and the Ukraine. I just happened to catch a snippet of an interview on MSNBC where their anchor was interviewing Amy Klobuchar. Boy, she's got quite a last name. Amy Klobuchar. And one of the points that she made about the president of the Ukraine, Zelensky, was he was a man of courage. And I was also listening to an interview by the former president of the Ukraine. His name is Poroshenko. But between Poroshenko and these names are so hard for me to pronounce. Poroshenko and Zelensky, both of them are fearless. They're saying publicly over and over and over again, we are not afraid. There were so many people, so many heads of state in other countries saying, let us extradite you, let us move you into a neighboring city or a neighboring country where you will be safe and protected, particularly Zelensky. And he said, no. He said, I am here for the people. We are going to stand strong. We are going to stand united. And then another interviewer, and I think this was Clarissa Ward, who is the chief foreign correspondent of CNN. And if you've never listened to her, please do. I just have so much admiration for this woman. She puts herself in danger. When she went into Afghanistan a year or so ago, she was there for quite some time, and after she went home to her husband and children, she was interviewed, and she said she felt like she had PTSD afterwards. So she had fear, but she didn't let the fear control her. The same thing that's happening with her now. She's in the Ukraine. She talked about how last night they were told to put on their warrior armor, and that's my paraphrase, warrior armor, because their lives were in danger. So we're seeing live examples of these fiery people. When Poroshenko was interviewed, one of the journalists asked him, Are you literally point blank? She just cut through the chase and said, "Are you not afraid you will be killed?" And he said, "I probably will be. And no, I am not afraid." This is those who are fiery. They are authentic. Fiery people are those who have a deep understanding and practice the law of synthesis. The law of synthesis is symbolically where the person can bring all the notes of the symphony together in such a way that their sound is symphonic, or rather synthesized. Synthesis leads you into joy. Fiery people touch the unity behind all diversity. Even at our level, I was thinking how, because my background is as a musician, and when we would sit together, there were about 104 of us that were musicians in the various orchestras we played in. We all had to be in unison. Our notes had to be in a state of harmony with all the other notes and all the other instruments and all the other musicians that were playing, in the symphonic orchestra. And I can't help it. For me, that is such a beautiful example of unity, of group consciousness, of a united consciousness, where we all can play and present a different note of understanding, a different note of opinion, but that understanding and that opinion must be in some way a unifying opinion, a unifying understanding, instead of belligerent or my opinion is the only opinion. I am the only one that is right. And people who behave like that, and they have strong, outspoken voices, begin to intimidate us. And therein comes the fear. Intimidation cannot be successful if we are fearless. See? And so our challenge as spiritual people, not going to war, but dealing with the different personalities of our co-workers, let us think about this example of an orchestra and musicians and their instruments, each playing different notes, but they're all harmonious. They create a synthesis that creates harmony and beauty. So this fire is found within those who have a progressive at-one-ment with what? Their inner flame. They have a progressive at-one-ment within that flame that is found in the heart. A fiery person is a person who is united with the flame of his or her heart. The highest principle is this flame within their nature, within their heart. When you begin to practice it, it's just like when the musicians that are in the orchestra and we're ready to perform a concert. One of the first things everybody has to do is to tune their instrument. Tune their instrument. And sometimes even during the performance, during rest or in between playing, this or that symphony, they tune their instrument. I just love the whole symbolism of what's going on with these musicians that are make up part of the symphony. If we as members of the human race, if we could align ourselves to this flame in our heart before we speak, before we write, before we post on social media, etc., 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 imagine what a world we would be living in. Presenting the highest principle within our nature. Here's another verse from Supermundane, paragraph 61. One may smile at the mortal fear that strikes even those who imagine themselves to be a great occultist. One may smile, I'm going to repeat this, one may smile at the mortal fear that strikes even those who imagine themselves to be great occultists, great esotericists. It is easy for them to sit and write articles, but they turn pale at the word battle. People who speak pompously about their initiations are far removed from real activity. How can they be taught to love the battle for good? There are no words to transform a crowd into a hero. I couldn't help but be impressed and raise my eyebrows, actually, as I'm listening to the people in Ukraine that have taken refuge in their subways, as a bomb shelter. And every single one of them that I heard anyway that was interviewed about their experience and what was going on, with them and their family, and finding refuge and staying in the Ukraine versus those that were fleeing. And they said, we have a choice. Some are choosing to leave. Some of us are choosing to stay here and fight. There is no criticism in that statement. They understood that some people felt it was their duty to their family and to protect their family and themselves was to leave the Ukraine, to flee. Whereas the ones we talked to said that their plight was to stay and to fight. Isn't that interesting? No criticism. The verse goes on to say, only danger can impel one into action. And it is precisely the coward who must go out to meet danger. People often beseech us to protect them from danger. But listen to this, dangers are necessary for their inner growth, for our inner growth. And the verse wraps up by saying, let us not dwell upon these spasms of fear, for when one speaks about brotherhood, there is no place for fear. Can you ever remember a time when you were compelled to face danger? Try to remember those times, for those times were tests for you. A danger is a moment in your life, even a period, a cycle in your life in which you were confronted by the possibility of losing your life, your possessions, your sanity, or the opportunity to evolve, to be transformed, to serve, or to be your real self. Every moment or time of danger is a test, an opportunity. It tests all that you know, all that you can do, and all that you are. I just had this thought. For example, something very simple. You've been asked to give a presentation, whether it's for the teaching or at your job or other circumstances, and you say, no, like, don't ask me. That's not me. I don't do things like that. That's a moment of opportunity. It can be a 1-paragraph presentation. You don't have to speak for an hour or a day. Just a few sentences. Or you're in class and say, that's just not me. I'm not the kind of person to speak up. See, it's a danger. It's a different kind of danger than being embroiled in a war or a battle. But this, we could say, this is a battle against your fear. So you feel that you're in danger. What puts you in danger? Why do you feel you are in danger if you present your truth? Every moment or time of danger is a test and an opportunity. It tests all that you know, all that you can do, and all that you are. A danger is an opportunity if you prove that you can use the moment of danger. You can use the moment of danger as a moment of entering into higher states of consciousness, as a moment to focus all your energies and talents and destroy within you all those obstacles which are evoking the danger. See the different approach now to help us understand what danger is, what it means to us. Dangers are the moments that we can achieve a great success which would otherwise be impossible. As you make your way through the studies of Agni Yoga, you're going to learn that it is not used for you to play with dangers or to live in dangers. It is to allow yourself to be in danger, use it as an opportunity to lift your consciousness into a higher state of existence so that you can be a disciple. If you cannot do these things, you are not a disciple. So let me read one more verse, and this is from Supermundane 159. Whoever turns to the teacher should fill his heart with love, since reverence and respect without love cannot be true. Some think that love will diminish reverence, but this indicates a misunderstanding of that high emotion. A true disciple is the one who loves his teacher. All feeling is based either on love or fear, but fear is not appropriate where there is striving to light. That just impresses me. It just fills me with joy, because it gives us an understanding that as a disciple who loves his teacher, as we strive toward the teacher, we are striving toward light. We are striving toward the greater light. But there must be love. So let me take a moment now. Oops, here's one. I forgot this one. This is great. This is a little story about Urasvati. Urasvati remembered that once a lotus served her as a boat. Do you remember this? This is Supermundane 159. Urasvati remembered that once a lotus served her as a boat. As frail as such a boat was, she felt no fear, because her love for the teacher gave her fearlessness. Only ardent love can create such fearlessness, and one should intensely cultivate it. Without the protection of love, one cannot withstand the attack of chaotic forces, and even one's health will suffer. I was thinking, this is so minimal in our understanding of what it is to face danger. This is so minimal, but it's so real. I find it so interesting when we engage in communication with one another. Now, almost all communication is taking place, written communication through email. And some people are afraid to say, love John, or love Harry. The women are not, the women are not there. I'm so proud of them. They can say love without any intrepidation. But the guys, it's something different. So they warm regards. Our best regards, right? Or they just sign their name. And it's like that's an impression that they are giving of themselves, how dangerous it is to use that word. Warm regards, as they think is a nice replacement for love. No. See, it's a little danger. So let me stop now and take a moment to, again, like I did last Sunday, define the subconscious mind. The ageless wisdom reveals a great deal about the constitution of man, the constitution of the human being. The teaching reminds us that human beings are more than just a physical body, more than emotion, more than the mind. And it reminds us that our future will include even higher, more refined bodies. From this, you learn that these lower and higher bodies, levels of beingness, are for the expression of one's life, your life, everyone's life, the life of the divine spark. That in essence, you are an unfolding human soul who is striving to return to the Father's home, right? If there were no challenges to this return, then it seems to me we could leave and return in one lifetime. But obviously, life is more complicated than that, and one of those complications is that where the human soul becomes caught in the ancient webs of the conscious mind, the conscious and subconscious mind, caught in one of the bodies of a person's human constitution. Our soul gets caught up in these webs, in the human constitution, primarily the subconscious mind. The subconscious mind is a depository of hindrances, pain and suffering, joy and horror are all chained together and begins to control the life of the soul. Isn't this interesting? I mean, if you stop to think about it, it is horrifying. And so, life after life, age after age, these accumulated chain of events prevents our soul from returning to the Father's home. However, you should see my notes. However, all is not lost because, as we now know, many opportunities are given to us in the form of tests, crises, opportunities where insight and foresight is given to us to advance our earthly incarnation, so we can all graduate and return to the Father's home. Advancement, though, requires that we pass these tests. This is why we had tests in grade school. We didn't know that. But these tests were all symbolic, to prepare us and strengthen us and make us ready so that we could pass these tests of danger and the control of these chain of events that make up our subconscious. So we can graduate. Last week I said that these age-long accumulations must be eliminated if we want to experience the heights of the supramundane life. And most especially the accumulation of fear, for fear is attached to almost every event that has become stored in the subconscious mind. Fear is like a radio station in the subconscious mind. It relates almost every element in our subconscious to everything else. This is why the major trigger and push button in your mind is fear. Cunning people try to manipulate by fear. Once you are afraid, or once a fear penetrates into your subconscious begins to collect its many memories of fear. And what happens? You become paralyzed. Right? If you've ever been in that kind of fear, you do become paralyzed. You can't move. You can't think. You can't say anything clearly because your whole human constitution is now paralyzed. In such paralysis, they no longer have the freedom to act with discrimination and with discernment. They no longer have the clarity of mind to make right and good choices for themselves, or in the case of, for example, President Zelensky, for his people. They run. He's staying. And they act out of the push-button controls, their push-button controls of hatred and anger and revenge and treason and so forth. Dark forces use fear to occupy and possess people. So if you ever find yourself fearful or occupied with fear at any level, realize that you have all the content, this chain of events that have been accumulated and stored in the subconscious are now push buttons for the dark forces to use. From the smallest to the greatest. Some dreams and nightmares are the result of the dark forces, their projections, which, associated with the fears in one's subconscious mind, creates horrors and paralysis in their life. Last week I shared a formula which can be used very effectively, a mantra which can be repeated daily with concentration, with willpower, and with faith. And it was this one phrase: let reality govern my every thought. Remember that? Let reality govern my every thought, and truth be the master of my life. And then I gave you an exercise to practice. There are 4 points to this exercise. If you are one who is striving on this illumined path of the teaching, try this exercise. Still your physical body. Quiet your astral body. Then link up with the transpersonal self and reason out the proper method or procedure to meet your difficulty. This is after you've linked up with your higher self, the transpersonal self. Having then exhausted all rational methods and having clearly seen your course of action, now you can take the next step, which is to raise your vibration as high as possible and call down from the sphere of intuition to put light on the situation. We can read this process, this exercise, through what many of the original members of the Agni Yoga Society did when they were living through World War II. Still the physical body, quiet the astral, line up with the transpersonal self, remove all rational methods, which is the interference of the subconscious and conscious mind, and then let the light of intuition come down to you and place light on your situation. If your intuition and reasoning faculty produce harmony, then proceed. Knowing is a fact that nothing can happen but what is for the best. You are being guided, and those who see the end from the beginning will make no error. This exercise brings in the fiery current of light from the intuitional plane and burns away accumulations of fear, not only in the subconscious, but also correspondingly in the astral plane. And it also burns the sediments of fear that are circulating in your blood system. Do not think that fieriness comes by itself. It must be cultivated through many lives. See, and this is why we are given these tests. This is why we have a teacher to help direct us through these tests and help us to understand and to keep us from fleeing from the danger or from the test or negating the test. See, there's so many elements here that we find ourselves immersed in that the teacher is going to help us and we don't even know. We don't even know. But if we have that combination or that combined formula of reverence and love for the teacher, then we will be protected. Fieriness is the degree of spirit that has been ignited in the soul and life. Fieriness is the degree of spirit that has been ignited in our soul and our life. It is the cosmic breath that surges through the whole of our cosmic and human constitution, but especially in our thoughts. So why is this? Thought gives form. Thought gives form. Thought gives direction. Thought gives life. Thought impacts creativeness. And thought imparts the attracting agent called the cosmic magnet. In the book Infinity, Volume 2, paragraph 189, it says, "Those who have a fiery spirit are those who live life by higher ways." It means people who are pure in spirit. It means they live their life through beauty, through the understanding of the common good. It means they live their lives without self-interest, without egotism. It means they live their life by applying the teaching. I had such a wonderful example given to me this morning by a true leader where a number of people were engaged in divisive opinions about what's going on between Russia and the Ukraine. A wonderful, beautiful group of people that love one another and care about one another. As they began to express their opinions, because most of them grew up in the Ukraine, too in Russia, their opinions began to break up the unity and beauty and harmony of the group. The leader came in and stopped it. See, I've seen the opposite happen, where there were a lot more people that were involved, and the contention, the hatred, the anger created a divisive army between those who believed and those who did not believe. And the leader said, this is good, let's let it happen. And it morphed throughout several countries and divided people who are still being harmed by. It was 3 days of communication. But that leader had the foresight and the insight to stop it. So I had that wonderful example this morning, and I consider this person such an Agni yogi because they demonstrated, let's stop this divisiveness, because it was breaking up a group of wonderful people. Fire demands cautious handling in all its manifestations. It is needed as the intermediary for all exalted actions. People cannot exist without turning to fire. In the earthly world or in the subtle world, they turn to the higher meditation. I said earlier that fieriness is the degree of spirit that has been ignited in your soul and life. The Master M says, I speak of the highest attainment, which will bring our subtle body to the fiery world. That is in Fiery World 1, paragraph 19. So what does bring our subtle body to the fiery world mean? The subtle world is the astral plane, right? The astral plane. That means that whenever we leave our bodies, we first enter into the astral plane, if we are normal. When we enter into the astral plane, there are things that pull us back to the earth. A very great battle starts between our soul and our astral body in the subtle world. To come down to the earth, or do we proceed to the fiery world? This battle is sometimes experienced by those people who are dead, but physically are still alive. For example, 1 or 2 hours before death, some people see this battle going on because they are already in the astral plane, but the cord is not yet cut. Eventually, the cord will be cut, and the person will be on the subtle plane. It will be very difficult for them to come back or to go forward. We could talk a whole hour about this, but use your intuition, think about it, what I'm really saying here. You can learn more about the subtle body and the subtle world by reading more about it in the book Agni Yoga Companion. There's 2 or 3 pages of information. You can find this Agni Yoga Companion on the White Mountain website. Once a disciple has cultivated a fiery spirit and lives by higher ways, the person is recognized by a spirit who has assimilated the fires of space. Such a person is an Agni yogi. An Agni yogi is a fire carrier who imparts to humanity the subtlety of knowledge. And that sentence is from Infinity 2, paragraph 385. One who has a fiery spirit and lives life by higher ways becomes a source of life for many. Such a person has burned the contents of the subconscious and is now living in the triadal light. That's why we had that meditation this morning, going into the Holy Triad. One who has a fiery spirit is one who awakens others. That person helps others to face themselves and to become their truest self. That one is totally fearless. Without bias or prejudice, this carrier of fire is one who has burned the content of their own subconscious and now ready to help others to awaken, to help others remove their pseudo masks so they can live life as a real person, an actual person rather than as one who hides behind those masks. The Agni yogi will help others to shatter their masks with truth, will shatter their false identities. See, this is very difficult to live in this country where the land of the free, right? Don't tell me what to do. I'm an ego. Hey, and yet we have a song we learned to sing that says, throw your ego into the ocean. That takes fearlessness. Do we want to shatter our false identities? If we allow that to happen, in shattering these false identities, we're going to see our true self, this true inner divinity. The Agni yogi will help others to free their soul from a state of numbness and a waking sleep, to deal with the existing fears and gradually to annihilate them from our subconscious is the greatest service that we can render to ourselves and to others. Are you strong enough, fearless enough to let this happen? Fear manifests through certain thought forms in our mental sphere and tries to control our life. It is important that we recognize these thought forms and handle them scientifically, as a thought form of fear contains many other vipers. Usually these thought forms come to the surface of the mind, and we call them memories. Memories that are built around painful emotions that have sunk into the subconscious mind. A part of this thought form flashes to the surface of our mind as a memory, but nonetheless its roots are in the subconscious. These events are filled mostly with fear, and when the fear or fears are re-stimulated, they draw that chain of fear from the subconscious, creating real disturbances in our subconscious. So let me end today's talk with this. There are many laws that are effective in the mental plane. One of them is opposing thought forms in the mental plane, how they can annihilate each other. For example, create an imaginary life in which you are the most benevolent, wonderful person. The next step, do exactly the opposite of the wrong act that you did before and create the opposite. Burn your negative thought form if that thought form is not the extension of a beautiful idea. And then practice scientific meditation. Those are 4 steps. Practicing scientific meditation is the method that is considered the royal road to victory. So I'm going to end there. I've shared a lot today. But hopefully it's significant. You know, if you are on this spiritual path, and if you're listening to this or you're here, I know you are. We are. So this is an important exercise, discipline, to work with the fears of the subconscious.